All right, welcome back to 60 Agenda. We're back with Ben. We got our man from End of the World News back. We're going to get into some wild shit. First off, I definitely wanted to thank a couple listeners, gave us some love. Jenny the Alchemist, appreciate you, love. Uh, Outside of that, keep supporting us, checking shit out. Hopefully you enjoy it. We're going to get right into it. We were already kind of talking about Babylon working, some wild shit. So we needed to hit record and get going. So hopefully you guys enjoy. Ben, get back to what we were talking about. We were talking about Babylon workings and with Jack
Yeah,
Parsons. We had talked
yeah.
about it on here, and we did not mention that 3 months later, June 16th, which three is very symbolic for Holy Trinity, all that. And so, anyways, what I'm getting at is Trump was born on June 16th when a lunar eclipse happened during a blood moon that was going on right at that time. So that's pretty nuts. And we were kind of getting into the egg symbolism. We had done an episode on that, and that's where you were leading off of that. So yeah, go ahead with that.
Yeah. Well, when you find out that, well, first of all, what I find really interesting about the Babylon working rituals is that it was Jack Parsons, the godfather of rocketry, and L. Ron Hubbard who was scribing it. And it did involve sex with a female at first. Like the two of them went out to that desert, which was the Devil's Den. Believe it or
Mm-hmm.
not, there's an actual gate in Pasadena. I grew up in Pasadena and called the Devil's Den. And that's where he took a lot of his rocker tree stuff out to. And that's where they actually did this sex magic and it's all types of wild stuff. And he was trying to invoke the goddess, what's it called? Babalon, right?
Mm-hmm.
But nothing happened. It says all that came were some winds and stuff like that. And then a few months later, I think it is, this redheaded came into his life and was like, oh my God, it's a sign. She's, the whore Babylon, essentially.
Yes. Yep.
Isn't that so crazy that these are actors are just the children of these old bloodlines? I mean, it's really incredible.
Yep. Exactly. And no, I mean, it really just you can't make it up. That mixed with the now I wonder how Trump really falls into it. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But it is
Mm.
odd that, 3 months later, there's a blood moon, lunar eclipse, and then he's born. And this guy's the Trump card, super symbolic with the tarot, so everything about this guy's life is kind of built around just lore. And if you were to create or bring in and usher in the reincarnation of whatever this being is that they're trying to do, yeah, I mean, he kind of encompasses it. And Aleister Crowley said he wouldn't necessarily be evil, but he would disrupt and cause revolution, change everything. And that's exactly definitely what he's doing.
And you know what's interesting is now whether he was the moon child of that sex magic that they did, I don't know, but he possibly could have been a moon child himself because everybody's like, oh, he's fighting the system. Trump is fighting the cabal. Well, look who his uncle is, right? His uncle
Exactly.
is literally the guy that worked for the FBI that went into Tesla's apartment and stole all his information. And Tesla's another interesting character. I know we like to prop him up as this great guy and all this type of stuff, but there's actually an article out there. He's actually 1 degree away of separation from Aleister Crowley. And they have a common denominator with this Germanic prince. He was the bastard son of one of these Germanic or Prussia princes. And there's actually a degree of separation. And guess what floor he died on? Floor 33, right? He was a cult to
Of
the bone.
course.
He knew what he was doing, but the answers, I shouldn't say the real answers, but there is some truth within the occult. This is why they practice it.
Oh, 100%. And I love that you just brought that up because his uncle was 100% adjacent with Jack Parsons. You can't confirm that they knew each other, but he took that technology you mentioned and brought it to the Jet Propulsions Laboratories, JPL. And if you look into JPL, there's a lot of other weird shit that went on there. And yeah, dude, I think he was definitely adjacent to them. And then also the weird satanic kind of connection with what's it called? MAGA. And then
Yeah.
I kind of look at like, the military, the intelligence, Michael Aquino. I kind of look at all that like, all right, there's some connections there, with
It
the
makes you
ideologies.
it makes you wonder if his parents practiced the same type of sex magic that those two were practicing, if he's not the moonchild of these two,
For
because these
sure.
bloodlines, they practice all this stuff behind closed doors. But what I really find interesting is sex magic, the OTO, Jack Parsons, and how that played into the godfather of rocketry and who is actually responsible for this technological revolution starting
Mm-hmm.
150 years ago. And to
Yeah.
me, these forces from outside this realm. We talk about how musicians, right? They channel lyrics from the ether. Who's giving them these lyrics? And what you find out within at least this modern technology that we have, a lot of these guys are dark arts occultists. And I'm going to read you a little thing about this guy named Seymour Gray. Have you ever heard of Seymour Gray?
I have, but
Okay.
probably not this quote, but I've definitely heard the name.
Okay, so let me just read you a little bit about Seymour Gray. Um, so he's considered the father of supercomputing, right? He was working with DARPA and even programs before that, developed basically turning these huge machines that they had with like IBM back in the day to smaller machines that we now use, right? He was a major part of that. And look
Mhm.
what he says. He famously said that when he encountered design challenges in his computer projects, he would go dig in a tunnel under his house, and the elves would offer solutions. Now, in mythology, who are the elves referring to? Or these are these angelic beings,
The
right? Some of
etherical
these,
beings. Yep.
right?
The
And,
ether, if you don't know, that would be the fifth element that they don't really tell you about.
and then you get with a lot of this technological revolution that's happening now, at least with these robots and this AI, a lot of that falls into line with mysticism, Kabbalah. I mean, I was just watching The Westworld. Have you seen that show?
Oh, for sure.
I didn't watch it back in the day, but I tried watching it like an episode or two, but I wasn't, I didn't know about the occult. I didn't know about the future of transhumanism. So I quickly stopped watching it, but
Right.
I rewatched it. And what I found interesting, there's so many biblical references in that show, from the name Dolores, who's associated with the Virgin Mary, and she finds that guy Jesse, who's supposed to save the world, right? I mean, it's types of wild stuff.
Oh
But
yeah.
in the third season, they're developing this AI that they created a god, right? That big silver sphere. And there's different generations of that sphere. You know what the names of the two first generations were? Well, it was
Well,
Saul and David, right?
mm,
So I think all of our modern technology that we have has actually been given to us by these angelic beings or these fallen angels. And I think the reason why is this. Now, whether you agree in the Bible or not, these bloodlines do, right? That's why they were trying to usher in the whore of Babylon to bring on the end of days, right? What they don't tell you, well, maybe Jack Parsons told you, but these other bloodlines, what they don't tell you is that they actively work for Satan. And there's actually a passage in the Bible when the people are talking to Jesus and they want to know when the end is going to be. Okay. And he goes, it will be like the days of Noah in
hmm
the final generation. Well, what are the days of Noah like, right? From Genesis 6:4, when the sons of God had sex with the daughters of men, created the giants. Well, the book of Enoch goes into that, and they call these angels watchers. And the watchers came down here and they taught humans all this stuff: science, pharmakia, root cutting, all types of wild stuff, which eventually formed Enochian magic. And then it was reestablished as the Hermetic principles or the Egyptian mystery schools ever since. So I believe that these fallen entities and these demons, they want the end of days because it leads to the final battle of Armageddon between them and God. And they need it to be like it was in the days of Noah. So what was it like the days of Noah? It was Atlantis, where these gods, we had this futuristic technology, we had all this genetic engineering, and God
hmm
flooded this place. And if you look at today with modern science and the modern technological revolution, exactly what's happening today.
Dude, I know that you don't listen to our stuff because you're super busy with your awesome fucking show. But listen, dude, our last episode, what touched on our last two, we kind of just got out of a little weird, what turned into almost like a 3 episode series that almost kind of had nothing to do with each other at first, but then ended up linking together. But essentially, what it came down to was we got down to like the RH negative bloodline, the whole, eugenics, obviously, that came out of that, giants being related to the RH negative bloodline. And then we kind of connected, or at least I did. I was talking about, this new uh, InQtel backed company that's creating dire wolves and bringing them back, right? And I'm like, man, if you can access that DNA of the giant, you could literally bring them back in a literal sense. But I do, or at least like that full on bloodline, whatever it is you're trying to, or I wonder what they could do with that, with the genetic engineering. I mean, when you are talking about the days of Noah, they're just trying to make some wild shit. So you were kind of touching on something we were already talking about in a way. But yeah, dude, I definitely think that they're getting information from them, especially Nikola Tesla. I didn't know that with the Aleister Crowley connection, but he said, 369, the pyramids, that's the
Yeah.
answer for everything. And obviously, Aleister Crowley was super connected with that. And you mentioned Germanic um, kind of bloodline connection there. Well, Trump has a Germanic bloodline as well that comes. So there's a theory that he's related to some family that starts with an M that
Mhm.
is like super Germanic, like noble, whatever. And so I think that all that goes together. And then especially when we know about the paperclip situation
Yeah.
with, so yeah, it's oddly
Well, what's
connected.
interesting is, with the whole, I mean, like I said, I think what we're told about World War II isn't necessarily what happened, but I do think the Nazis were a bunch of occultists. You just have to look at their
Yeah.
symbolism: the black sun, the throne of Zeus. The swastika is an occult symbolism, which is why you find it all over the world, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it's a symbol of the Watchers that came down here, and when you learn about them, they were channeling the Atlanteans. And when he talks about the Aryan race, it's not just the white race. Those are the Aryan gods, the gods of Atlantis, the gods that came down during the days of Noah. And they're going around trying to search for this stuff. And they're doing all types of genetic stuff. And to your point, they might have tried to be bringing back these, what's it called, Nephilim bloodlines
Right.
and create them, right? Super interesting stuff.
No, exactly. And it's funny because we were talking about Admiral Byrd and the Hollow Earth. That's kind of what started it all off, right? And next thing you know, I'm like, well, if you look at the actual diary, it sounds like Nazi propaganda. I mean, he went down there was UFOs with the Aryan bloodline that's, essentially Atlantis or Shambhala, which all just speaks to the old world that's gone. But they want to literalize it as if it's here still and make it like aliens and, reborn. They always rebrand shit. So you go with it with this modern age. But I just think that was, and especially the timeline, we're talking 1947. I mean, who knows, dude? That was after Paperclip. So I definitely think that, yeah,
That
that
Admiral, it's funny. I actually saw this because Admiral Byrd is something you get into in the beginning of conspiracy. He's like, what? It's not all ice up there. There's green stuff and stuff like that.
hmm
And so when I was getting into all that stuff, um, I remember seeing this one video about you can tell when someone is lying based on where their eyes are going, right? Where their face is going, where they're talking to you. And then I rewatched that Admiral Byrd interview, and he's seriously looking down, eyes are going
hmm
down, like he's straight up lying to you. So to your point, I often wonder how much of what Admiral Byrd is real and how much of it is manipulated to fall into this greater agenda, back to the Aryans, back to the aliens coming back here.
hmm
Because let's not forget, he was working for the U.S. military.
Right. And then to your point, you get the Freemason Buzz Aldrin who went to the moon, who also goes down to Antarctica and said, evil lives down here. And then he dies of a heart attack right after. It's like, wow, you know what I mean? You couldn't have timed that better. You know what I mean? So I think that
Indar, the albino lizard, right?
yep, yep. They just want to keep that, and that just tells me, okay, you guys want to keep that alive, whatever that is. I mean, they like to keep your reality confused, and keep you from actually looking. It's smart. It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, but like behind the curtain, you know what I mean? But yeah.
You know what I
So
found interesting though? I actually found a connection with Trump maybe to Babylon the Great.
really,
So yeah, to a certain extent. So I don't think if we are living in the end of days, right? And if that is true, right? There's a big push to make Trump look like this antichrist type figure. You see it if you know what you're looking for. And I think
definitely.
that's kind of false in my opinion. I think he's too polarizing. I think he's too old and he just doesn't fit the bill.
Yeah.
However, if he is going to play a role in this, it's one of the 10 kings. And it's Babylon or the whore of Babylon, which is represented as a city that gives the power to these 10 kings. So you have Aleister Crowley, not Aleister Crowley, but yeah, Aleister Crowley's probably doing that too. You have Parsons trying to evoke this, bring on Babylon, the city. So what exactly is that, and how are we going to see that today? Now, when you read the book of Revelations, um, that's a real tough book. And a lot of it is interpretation. A lot of it is esoteric. It's truly crazy. But from what I can tell, and this is just one idea of it, essentially what it is it's like the nerve city of the one world government with the one world religion.
hmm
And a lot of people think that, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, they think it's the Catholic, it's the Vatican. Just because it tells us that it's a city, it's based on a hill, which it tells us to. And a lot of people don't realize this is that the Vatican was actually built on the hill of Vatica, which was a special hill for the Etruscan people. And they actually worship the god. The god is Vatica, right? Whore Babylon, Vatica. I
Mm,
mean, it's a
mm.
goddess, who knows? Is she a real thing that ushers in this city? Possibly. Because I think we also got to remember is that I don't think anything happens here randomly. I think it's first initiated in this spiritual realm. And this goddess Vatica or the whore Babylon could be a really real thing. And maybe by bringing her into this realm is when Babylon the Great starts. But that's basically the nerve center of this one world technocracy. And it's going to be a mystery Babylon religion. So what is that, right? Well, that goes all the way back to Babylon, the Egyptian mystery schools. Who did they worship? They worship the gods, right? That's what I
Mm-hmm.
think they're bring us back to. So you see this now kind of happen where the Antichrist replaces the 10 kings, or the 10 kings give their power to the Antichrist. And I think we're going to see this today, kind of how these political Zionists are working with the Bilderberg group, right? I think political Zionism is just a tool to collapse the entire system. I know a lot of people talk about the Noahide laws that they're trying to usher in. But if you read the book of Revelations, that's not what happens. It's an entirely new mystery religion. And
Mm.
I would say it's closer to the Kabbalah or mysticism or the Egyptian mystery schools than traditional Abrahamic faith. I think they're going to destroy traditional Abrahamic faith. And I think they're going to blame everything that happens on that. And you can kind of see that coming to fruition with this possible World War III that we're about to see.
Oh yeah. And I do think that you could look at even a technocratic state as like the Antichrist that they all give their power away to in a sense. You know what I mean? So that's kind of another way where it's not a person, it's kind of a the system, in a way, because they, the mark and all that. Um, but yeah, definitely I could see that. I forgot what else I was gonna say, but yeah, I did want to get into the big beautiful bill a little bit. To your point with the Golden Dome. I mean, I don't think that's gonna be something that's helping us or saving us necessarily. I think it would be more working with Geospatial Institute, gathering data, making sure you know where everybody is, geo tracking, you make sure, with biosent. So it seems like it's going to be a perfect dome to keep us almost like Skynet, some trend,
Was
some
that it? Was that
Terminator
in the
shit.
bill? Was the Golden Bill budgeted in the bill?
It's in the
Golden Dome
bill.
is budded. Yeah, we checked a lot of this before, so we could kind of pull it up. So we'll have some of it pulled up. Yeah, it's budgeted. I think what 25 bill in there, 25 bill for
Yes.
that, Yeah. And then you mix that with, 45 billion towards all these alligator Alcatraz and all these other possible internment camps. And we say internment camps because the guy says there's been people born here that should be in these, deported or put somewhere. And they're going to look into that next. And that might be the next job. This is a real quote. And so, and Justin, you could project that on there later or whatever if you want. But yeah, so it's definitely something to watch, man. Cause I was saying this before when I heard about him. I was like, dude, 45 billion to build camps for illegals. Why not deport them? Why do you need camps here? The only reason why you would need camps here, and you're already doing it with people with green cards, is to denaturalize people. Or your crazy ass will take it a step further and just take, people that were born here and just figure out a loophole, some kind of federal loophole. And guess what? Here's the loophole. Put them in camps in America and you're not deporting them, and then you're not, denaturalizing them. And so there you didn't break a law. The only law you broke was like I guess unlawful like arrest, which isn't really, I mean, he's obviously not giving a shit about that.
Yeah, I know, I'm with you. So I think everything we're seeing right now is preparing us for the eventual World War III, which is a little different than World War II with different sets of challenges. And it
Mm.
goes back to, the what's it called, the protests that were going on earlier, and how they're going to usher in this Palantir system of data
Yes.
collection on each one of us. You're talking about also possible a bio digital border as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what else do you need when you're at war? Well, you need you need jails, right? You need places to put dissidents.
That's what they
And
did with the
especially
Japanese in World War II. That's exactly what they
right.
did.
You need all that stuff. And they're using this or the immigration as a reason to do it. But when you look at the raw numbers, what do we have? Possibly 30 million illegals here. Right now, at our current capacity, we have the ability to deport maybe 250,000 of them a year. I think with this bill, what I read somewhere, he wants to bring it up to 1,800 a day, which comes out to be 500,000 a year. We're talking about a 60-year plan. This is not
Hmm.
doing anything
I
to put a dent into that problem.
He
He's
wants
building
to
these
do a
for something
mill.
else.
I
He
saw
wants to
something that
do. He
was a
wants to
million
up it to a
annually.
mill. He wants to do a mill. So to your point, that's even more crazy. Like a mill, you're gonna get rid of 1 million people a year. I don't
Yeah.
even understand how you're gonna find that many. You know what I mean? I mean that would turn it into a 5-year plan if it's really just illegals. But I don't
Gonna
think
start
that
drawing
that's the
names out
case.
of a hat.
Pretty
Well, and
much.
that's another thing, but people don't realize. Like, if we think that deporting $200,000 a year is leading to this type of unrest, imagine the size and scale and scope of this operation.
Oh yeah,
We're
yeah. It's gonna
talking
be huge.
militarization within our borders. We're talking about knocking down doors, tearing apart families to really give apart. And if you really want to see an uprising or a, rebellion, I think that's where it's going to come from if they actually follow through with it and that's what they want to do. But we're
Mhm.
assuming that's what he's using these for. And like I said, I think right now they're using the immigration thing as an excuse to set up everything for what's about to go down.
Right.
Yeah, because
I agree with
something in
that.
this bill, uh, it's 1.4 billion for the expansion of the small unmanned aerial system industrial base.
Mm.
That's crazy. And did you
Unmanned.
Yeah,
see
it's pretty
that?
big.
And
Is
you
that
know what
not
they even
fucking weird?
Yeah.
you know what I find weird is how they're commercialized. I mean, would you ever think in a million years? I mean, I'm not that old, but I mean, even in my lifetime, this commercialization of our president and policies. There's a guy named who's a total, Trump sycophant, and clearly gets paid for someone for pushing this shit. But this guy named Benny Johnson was literally down at Alcatraz, what's it called, Gator Alcatraz, whatever they call it, and they're selling merch.
Really.
They're selling Alcatraz, Gator
That's
Alcatraz merch.
dude, that's the Bolsheviks. We went over the Bolsheviks. We talked about it. Now, what they did was they branded political, or well, I guess there was also propaganda too. Edward Bernays, you remember he's Freud's fucking, nephew or whatever. Yeah, so he created the book on propaganda, and in there he said brand you like branding a politician and not going off a policy. So just making it more of a brand, and that is Trump, 100% to the T. And so if you want to propagandize people to the max, you take a guy that you've been turning into a brand for the past 20 years and you put him out there and he's doing a great job. And that's exactly what you're seeing.
Oh, I think he was groomed for all this. I mean, this is real. And they just throw it into your face. And I know the normal person, even some of my followers, they probably think I'm crazy when I point this stuff out at, but he just
Mm-hmm.
came out with a new fragrance, right? A new cologne, 47 or 45 and 47. Well, you know that equals 9/11, but it's 40, 45, 47 victory, 9/11 victory, right? That's kind of what turned all this going. But you know how many ounces it comes in? 3.3 ounces.
Get the
30.
fuck out.
Oh,
Of
I swear to
course it
God, you
does.
can't make this up. I should have,
33. No,
knew
no,
that
no.
going into
It's
it.
all in your face. And I've watched him shake people's hands, dude. I see his hands, the way that they move. I see the handshake. I know he's got the grandmaster handshake every time he shakes people's hands. And not only that, but he'll go shake hands with other leaders. He does the grandmaster handshake over them every time. I've never seen him do the one where he's kind of giving to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
the
there's
over part,
yeah, and he's always doing the one where it's over
like
everybody.
he's dominating them.
And he's got the two fingers extended down, which it's just a Masonic handshake. You know what I mean? It's clear,
Mhm.
but I mean that's why I think Putin and him, it's all theater, 100%.
It's
Like you
all
said.
theater. And on that, the one thing about your followers, right now, they're making a real push on social media to prop up Thomas Massey, right?
They are.
And be careful, people.
Remind me again, okay? Because
Oh,
I've learned more about him since you mentioned. And
yeah.
so was it the Knights of Malta? I don't want to mess it
So
up.
this
So you
is
go
so this,
ahead.
and you can look this up. This is all real stuff. He was groomed. And I'm going to say groomed because it started off as a child organization called Demolay International,
Mm.
which was named after the last Grand Master of the Knights Templars. Now, if you know anything about the Knights Templars, they created the city of London, which is also tied to the Rothschilds. Now, the Bowers changed their name to the Rothschilds, which means Red Shield. And the Red Shield protects what? The Red Cross, which is the cross of the Knights Templars. So this guy is 100% connected to the crown and the Masonic what's it called? And remember what Albert Pike said: when the people need a hero, we shall supply one. And they're supplying one right now. Because the one thing the system, I believe, fears the most is that we lose faith in it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think no one is good in it, guess what? You're no longer controllable. You're no longer buying into this corrupt system that's basically here to enslave us. So they're going to roll these people out as all this stuff starts to change. And another thing that's interesting too, he actually has a lot of patents in tech, AI, and augmented reality. So he, in a sense, I've never heard him talk about this, but he's definitely a tech guy. I don't know what his feelings are about transhumanism, but what's interesting, he opposed the big, beautiful bill, right? Oh, he's winning for us, right? And he was talking about the whole AI thing. And you actually mentioned that to me, and I was wrong about the video, how they took that out of the bill. But interesting enough, he wasn't necessarily opposing the AI revolution, because why would he? He's a millionaire because of it, right? What he opposed to was local, I guess you'd say, powers over, federal powers, right? He didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel the federal government had a right to stick a data center in your city if you didn't want it. He wasn't opposed to the data center in general. He wasn't opposed to AI in general.
No, I
He was
see.
just opposed to the state versus federal rights thing. So, like I said, this is one big Masonic theater, and they just want you to have faith in the system.
And also, let's really use our brains here, okay? I think that was a big smokescreen, the whole AI thing, the whole moratorium on the AI. I think they wanted people to freak out and be like, look at that. They're trying to spend, put in a little 10-year moratorium on AI where nobody can do anything about it. But if you look at the Golden Dome, and not only that, but there's a few others I'll list off in a minute. But the Golden Dome, you don't need, like, states won't be able to do anything about it because the dome's over everybody. You see what I'm saying? And so if you have that, it's kind of like a over on the whole moratorium anyways. So that mixed with the whole expanding ice. And then he's what was the thing with the broadband? Hold on, let me get to that. There was something about the broad. Oh yeah, here it is. So a spectrum allocation for monitoring. So essentially they're laying the groundwork for federal control over like critical communications by auctioning off 600 megahertz of spectrum between 1.3 and 10 gigahertz by 2034. Now, I'm not like super technical. I don't get that exactly, but apparently what it does is centralizes all data collection, which we know Palantir is using with the Surveillance and Geospatial Institute. Add that in with the Golden Dome. You've literally encompassed the whole country. Nobody's getting anywhere without any kind of, you're going to know. There's nowhere you could go.
To your point, it being a whole smokescreen, because you know what it does now? So they said, oh, they're going to have this, and everyone's freaking out. No, this is the worst thing ever, right? So they take it out. Well, guess what? Everybody's like, well, we don't have to worry about that now.
Pass the bill and look at all the other shit.
Don't worry about it.
It's layered like a fucking lasagna in the bill, dude. We could sit here and talk for 2 hours about different things in this bill that are essentially just as bad as the 10-year moratorium, that they weaken judicial oversight to where they could, I think the what is it? The right to work. Remember the right to work shit? Well, that came out with Reagan. Well, that means that they could just fire you, right? So they're using that for federal workers. So essentially, if you're a dissenter, you get fired. Now you've created this authoritarian kind of structure. And even if he doesn't use it the way that we're worried about, anybody could afterwards. And then we're talking about the tech bros, the dark enlightenment people, JD Vance, Peter Thiel, all the people that are going to be leading shit after him. That's the people that are going to be using these things. He may be the benevolent king right now for everybody, but pretty soon you're going to have the real deal coming in.
So remember what we talked about before, Trump possibly being one of the 10 kings. And what do the 10 kings do? They give their power to the Antichrist, and the Antichrist rules.
Yep.
So you could see how him, and I don't think Peter Thiel's the Antichrist if it's real.
No.
Because the thing is, the Antichrist is going to be deceptive, right? Everybody's going to turn towards the Antichrist. So I don't think you can have any polarized figure we have today being the Antichrist. I think he's alive. I think he's going to come out of nowhere. And he's essentially what's going to put an end to this, giant war that they're planning on.
Okay.
And I mean, that's what
it's hard to get everybody on the world in the world on board for a person. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wonder what that is.
So that's what I realized, because That's why I think they need a World War III, right? Because you could only kill so many people with, say, vaccines, poisons in the food, the water, stuff like that, the cancers, all that type of stuff. You can only kill so many people. But in this new world that they want, there's no need for people, right? Because they have this robotics and they have the AI to do all the work for us. So they're really going to have to kill us. And I think that's what these 10 kings do. And you kind of see Trump here, and they're kind of talking about creating these, technocracy, what are they called? The 10 different regional
Oh, the
technocracies or whatever.
technates.
Technates. Well,
Mm-hmm.
how did they choose 10? The 10 kings, right?
Mm-hmm.
They give their
Mm-hmm.
power to the beast. I'm telling you,
And
all
10
this
is the
stuff.
number of completion. And also, if you look at even the symbolism with John F. Kennedy, whenever he got killed, which we're going to get into a little bit of James Shelby Downard, if you haven't heard of him, that's going to, for my listeners, that's going to be some shit we get into. And this is out of the Killing of the King ritual, where he did a whole thing about the way they use symbolism and ritual killings for, let's say, Elvis or John F. Kennedy, but like mainly John F. Kennedy. And obviously 11/22 when he died, that's 33. But then you even add the year, it's 10, the number of completion. You know what I mean? So to your point, and then also X for Elon Musk, which he's wanted to name everything, is 10. And the Roman numerals IXXI for 9/11, like you mentioned earlier, that's the sigil for Saturn. So there's your connection to the Saturnalia worship of the black cube, the fucking Satan shit that you're talking about. So it's clearly there in front of us. It's just a matter of kind of knowing that it's crazy.
But I mean, you even see this now. I mean, with Elon Musk coming out and backing Massey. And I mean, the last 2 or 3 weeks, he's put out a poll saying, hey, we need a new political party, right?
Mm,
Because both the right and left are controlled by these outside interests.
I
And
see.
guess what, guys? This is what he's telling everybody. We did all those cuts and Doge. We brought in the AI and replaced all these people. But guess what? It's our fat cat politicians. It's our sold out politicians that can't pull the trigger. So what can we do? You know what would have pulled the trigger? AI, because AI has no emotion and AI will do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention his grandfather, all the way back in Canada with technocracy. You really see this coming to fruition and people think you're nuts.
No, yeah, it's 100% coming to fruition. Yeah, especially because even RFK, dude, it's so sad. We're talking about poisons in the food. We're talking about all these different dyes and everything, and they give you a few from a few companies. But then while he's saying that, he's like, what I really want to do is get everybody within 4 years to wear a wearable. So that way everybody's got their data tracked and they know what they're doing. And then now, one, that's not going to incentivize anybody to be healthy. That's just going to make them think like, oh, I've got my tracking thing. I know what's going on and I'm good. And what that gives them is the power of like, kind of control tracking and then getting you used to having something that's essentially always keeping some kind of like a number attached to everything you do. So that way, whenever social credit score and all that shit comes into play, you're already kind of geared up and docile and doing what they want. You know what I mean? Just by they're training people like a dog almost, just
Yeah.
slowly, real slowly.
Yeah, it's crazy watching the whole Maha movement and Kennedy Jr. I mean, I was calling out this before. I mean, there's a really interesting book by Franz something about the 13 American Illuminati bloodlines?
Hmm.
And the Kennedys are part of that, right? Let's not forget they're a powerful elite family. And like all bloodlines, there's different factions that go to war with each other. And they're probably going to battle the war with the Bush, side of it, that death cult.
Oh yeah.
And it is interesting that they always tie, at least within the QAnon space, they always tied Trump to who? The or the JFK Jr., right? There's
Mm-hmm.
definitely an alliance there. And man, did we get fooled by the whole Maha movement? Or did the public get fooled by the whole Maha movement? It went from, to your point, oh, we're going to take these red dyes out of the candies. Well, guess what, people? Just don't eat the candies, right? You don't need the
Mm-hmm.
government coming to take the red dye. And if you actually look into the bill and what he says, it doesn't even guarantee that they take these dyes out. They're
Mm-hmm.
just going to pressure them to do, or we're going to make it known to the people. Meanwhile, he's fast tracking us to wearable, what's it called? Technology, which
Mm-hmm.
ultimately takes our data, feeds it into this beast system. And I think ultimately up to the world sentient simulation where they have an avatar of each one of us, which is another thing they talked about in Westworld 3, which is nuts.
That is true. Dude, yeah, it really is kind of. And then once they get in, once you're fully locked in, we've talked about this before. They're trying to steal your essence. You know what I mean? Your shit's going to be locked down in this material realm, world, whatever you want to look at it as, and it's over after that. I mean, I really think now. I know with your biblical back, I'm sure that it says something about salvation, but I just couldn't imagine that that
Oh, for
there's any
them?
redemption for people
Well,
that get that follow through with, let's say, the whole deal, changing their whole
well, you
body and
want to,
everything.
so I actually have some ideas about that, and they're pretty interesting. According to the Bible, there's only one unforgivable sin, and it's not specific. It says blasphemies against the Holy Spirit. All right. So what does that mean? Right. So, but I think you have to look in history of the Bible and in the future of the Bible to figure out what that means. Okay. So there's two times that God destroys this place. That's before, during the days of Noah, the times of Atlantis, and in the end of days. Now, there's a passage in Genesis that says that all flesh was corrupted except for Noah. And we know that these fallen entities during that time came down and they gave them all this technology, and they were using things like CRISPR to create like three-headed dogs that you see in all this different mythology. And there's a train of thought that the one unforgivable sin is changing our genetics, right? To the point we're no longer human. Now it happens again in the end when people take the mark of the beast, right? Whatever that is.
Yeah, dude.
And there's that one guy, Alexander Wang, that AI guy, that said that babies are going to become born into this world with their genes already changed and augmented, different than those who take in that wearable tech, right?
Mm-hmm.
Implying that those Neuralink tech is going to change our genetics to a point that we're going to pass it on to future generations in their cells.
And that's called gene drive editing. That's called gene drive editing. That's 100% real because back in 2020, I watched a documentary about CRISPR when it first was coming out, and it talked, or when it was first being fully like rolled out publicly. And they talked about how they want to be able to change the next generation's genes as well. And then you get with, you mix that with, like, obviously Jeffrey Epstein was super involved in the funding of this. And then Elon Musk is normalizing the idea of essentially like having baby. I mean, him having babies all over and like no real family. You know what I mean? Just kind of like popping
Have you
babies
ever heard
everywhere.
whose
He's
babies
in.
were named after?
He's give who they were named after.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead with that.
So, I mean,
I'll
you got to
remember where
look
I
it up. You
was.
know that one with the weird name, like XAB,
Yeah,
whatever it is? That's named after a military program called like something Angel, right?
really.
Like, oh, yeah, look, going down that rabbit
I'll
hole, I have to
check
look
into
it up.
that.
He's named after a fallen angel.
Really,
But yeah, oh,
really.
yeah.
Not even surprised with that one. No, and exactly. And then so they're normalizing the idea of you could inseminate or just take your egg, inseminate it, put it in this little incubator. We're going to do all the editing in that incubator. This little incubator is going to naturally edit the fucking baby for them. You know what I mean? And so that's what I worry about is normalizing that next stage of where people are literally looking at other people like, wow, you had your baby. You know what I mean? Where they're like, you had a baby. Oh, it's normal to just go do it this way, where why would you do that? Why would you take 9 months out of your life? I guarantee that's going to be a
Why would you
normal.
destroy your body? Just have it
Mm-hmm.
in an incubator like
Yep.
the Brave New World told us about.
Our last
Which, by the
episode. Yep. Go ahead.
and people are like they're prophets. They're prophets. No, they're just read into the script, right? And
Mm-hmm.
what I also believe, a lot of this stuff, it's like there's always that question, like, why do they tell us this stuff in movies and things like that? No, there's some people believe they do it for karma reasons, right? They feel it lets them off the hook, but I disagree with that because I have a biblical view of it, not a churchy view or religious view. I
Mm-hmm.
think Satan lives in the Vatican, but um, to me, it's clear what happens to these demonic entities who are possessing these people and these angels and stuff like that. They're judged, you know? So I think the reason they tell us this stuff and they show us this stuff is because it's one big magic trick, right? You have to
Mm.
speak it into existence, just like
Mm.
in Genesis, God spoke the universe into existence. To me, this is them manifesting their reality, and they have to put it out into the ether kind of brainwash us, and then we kind of bring it to the future.
And that gets back into the manifestation topic we've had, where you create with your thoughts and your consciousness and words and speaking, just like you were just saying. And that's 100% can be used for good or bad. And The Apprentice with Donald Trump, he would just be some random billionaire like Jeff Bezos does or whatever, like a random, like obscure billionaire. If they didn't build this whole brand around him with rappers making songs about it, like just extensive jamming Donald Trump, Trump down everybody's throat, to where now it's like it makes a lot of sense that they just predictive program that and spoke that into existence, and that everybody's and it worked like a charm. I mean, wow. I wonder if they did that for Hitler first.
No, seriously. I mean, I'll tell you one thing, I believe there is a ton of truth in the Hermetic principles. I believe that's how
definitely.
the universal works. Now, where I would say I disagree with the Hermetic principles, because I believe the source comes from the Enochian magic from before the flood. And what they do, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, they never give credit to a real creator God, like a divine entity that created all this. I think they view God, or their idea of God, as this energy of the world that it's used to manipulate. That we're the co-creators and we can manipulate it with a certain extent, right? I think within the Bible, we'd call that the Holy Spirit working through us.
Yeah, and they kind of look at it as the architect of the universe. They're decoding the architecture of the universe, which they're applying. So, like, with that is intellect, right? With Lucifer, the worship of intellect. That's where you get geometria that ties in right with, what you're saying, Enochian magic. You couldn't have Enochian magic without the architecture, the Fibonacci, all that numbers and geometry. That is not the creation force. So that's the difference where, yes, you're right. They say that is the greatest force. The architect of the universe is who they worship. And they act like and try to say it in a way where it sounds like that's the creative energy and the creative force, but it's not. The creative energy is behind that, because they tell you the truth in the Gnosticism when they say the material world was created by the little g gods. Now, I understand that the Bible says, God made everything, but maybe he made everything. And then our fall was literally us going into the material realm and fucking around with some shit, and now here we are. So that could be something there where there's a middle ground there. And so I do kind of take that kind of thought process with that.
This is where I come in the middle ground with all my Gnostic friends and stuff like that. I think there's, and like, I'm a big Bible guy, but I think we got to understand that these dark forces believe in the Bible. They do. Just look at what's happening. They're manufacturing this, right? And I know a lot of people are turned away from the Bible because we conflated, at least I did for the longest time. I conflated it with the temple. I conflated it with the Catholic Church. I conflated it with, all the evil stuff going on in it. And I get that. And this is my only plea to whether you believe in that God or this God or whatever it is, right? I say this, look it. All I want people to do is say there is a creator. I don't know exactly what that creator is, but there's something, energy, whatever it created us. There's a spirit to that, right? That lives through us, that comes through us, that we can glorify and repent. What you call them, I don't mind it. Whatever your idea of how this universe works, if we're living in this false reality that the archons made, that's great. It could be. I could be wrong about that. But I think one thing that we should all come together and realize that none of us are perfect. And we should ask for forgiveness and try to treat others with love.
Oh, for sure. I agree with all that. I would say, wouldn't the pushback be that they use the Bible because they know that they've gotten a lot of people to believe in it to the point where they know they can control people, so they make it look like prophecies coming true, and it doesn't mean that they actually believe in it, but that they use it for their advantage for people that are, let's say, mind controlled in that sense, right? Religiously culty, And so I wonder if that is an aspect. Like, I feel like that is probably an argument some people would have with that, but
I don't disagree with that.
I think it's both for sure. Because I argue that they wrote a lot of the prophecy that's in the Bible as well. And with the Schofield part of it, I know there was an adage, but that's been put into the evangelical churches to the point where Ted Cruz is quoting that whenever he's clearly quoting the Schofield version, because it nowhere in there says anything about Israel. It says Abraham. Abraham is not Israel. So that's a different interpretation. So I'm just saying, I think
Oh,
that has been very well done.
oh, they're manufacturing this without a doubt. Now, that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that it's not coming to pass or it isn't true, but I believe you. There's
Right,
definitely a
right.
version of this manufacturing. And this is what I always go back to, right? They believe in it, but what they don't tell you is that they worship the gods, right? So all these secret societies, it all goes back to the Egyptian mystery schools and before that. And the book of Enoch talks about the watchers that came down. These are the gods that ruled over the earth for a period of times, right? These are the gods, my belief, that the Mayans worship, that the Nords worship, that the Hindus worship. These are all the same gods. And according to the book of Enoch, they were in rebellion, or even Genesis 6:4, when it comes down, the gods were in rebellion against the God of the Bible, the Most High. So, like I said, within these secret societies, they have all the knowledge, and I don't think they would be worshiping these rebellious angels if they didn't believe it was true.
I know what you're saying. I know
Right?
what you're saying.
I
I do
believe in
agree with
God,
that.
and
Yeah,
I pray
yeah.
to God because I believe it be true because I see it work in my life.
Mm-hmm.
These people practice what they practice because one, they have the knowledge that's passed on, but because they believe it to be true, right?
Mm-hmm.
LeBron James isn't stepping on the court every night doing the weird things with his hands and spraying around the, magic with the giant boule tattoo on his chest because he's being some edgelord. The most powerful
Yeah.
CEOs aren't going up to Bohemian Grove once a year to, do mock sacrifices
Yeah.
to an owl god to be edgelords, right? This is real stuff.
Yeah.
And,
That's true. Dude, 100%. Yeah, I can't, man, dude, we're 100% in line. That's so funny. Yeah, I think that what's funny though is I do remember vividly, since we're talking about the Bible a lot in this, the Jesus part where he said not to be of this earth. So that to me is kind of back into that whole, like, maybe the in general, everything of this earth. And and to elaborate, what is mystery school and all that? It is the worship of the elements, the worship of nature. It's the idea, the worship of a micro, macro, Fibonacci sequence, all that, the architecture within, and then trying to replicate it. And not only that, but let's get back into the science aspect of it. When the nuclear bomb went off, that was them destroying matter, creation, and showing that in their eyes, at least scientifically, that they are as God. In their eyes, that's how they looked at it. And when that they're into this satanic fucking weird ritual shit, and then the nukes may not even be what we think they are. Like people say, there's a theory that they may be just kind of propagandized to be this big bomb whenever really it's something else. I don't know. Who knows?
who
But
knows, right?
they're definitely breaking reality. I mean, that's, you break material reality, then I understand. Yeah, dude, that scientific elitism is definitely in full
It's
throttle.
interesting. Before that movie Oppenheimer, they had either a quote or something that was attributed, or they talked about Shiva the Destroyer, right? The same deity that's in the middle of CERN right now, where they're messing with matter as well.
Nope.
And
it
it's
was, I
because
believe,
they're trying to bring on the end of an age.
yeah,
Right.
it was now I become death or whatever, or something like that.
Right.
So, which is yeah, and that's definitely what they're, yeah, dude.
And
It's
what's
some
also
wild
interesting,
shit.
the other belief systems, and I always go back to Hinduism. And I just picked up a Hindu lady the other day in my Uber, and I was talking to her. I was like, "Oh my God, how do you know about all these gods?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, I'll tell you one thing. I believe your gods are real. I don't think they're fake.
Right,
I
but they
just
aren't what
personally
you think.
think they were part of a great rebellion."
Yeah. Dude, I love that. It's cool to do things where you get to meet a good amount of people and then like kind of feel them out for a second and see if you could have a conversation. And it's cool whenever it happens. You know what I mean? It
Oh,
is
you should jump in
in
my Uber,
any
dude. It's
regard.
nuts.
Oh, I bet, dude. I've had some good
You
Uber
just give
drivers.
me an opening and I'm going right into it. And whether
Yeah.
you smoke cigarettes or not, by the end of it, I'm sure some of these people leave my car like, fuck, I need a cigarette right now.
Oh yeah,
What
dude,
was this dude
100%.
talking
What
about?
the? I love it, dude. You got to capture them, man. Audience capture for sure. You just gotta let them know, man. Like, look, dude, because yeah, I like to do that, man. I do. I'm not in the business of. I always say, like, this podcast isn't for people to like to wake up necessarily because it's deep. I mean, we don't. We try to go into every topic and kind of elaborate, but we also come into it like, look, you got to have some base understanding of some of it because a lot of it's we try to break down like the stupid conspiracies, like you talked about with the Agartha and all that shit, and be objective. And it's not for people that want to be sensational and be all, I want to think about crazy shit and not actually be in reality. And so there is a difference where it's like we try to lay that down. Where I think all of our listeners are in tune. The few we have, I'm just kidding. We're kind of grown up, but yeah, no, yeah, we're doing good actually.
I'll
It's been
prop this up
awesome.
on my account when you upload this stuff. I'll put it
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah. No, YouTube's
Um,
been great too. Actually, I'm surprised they haven't fucked with us at all because we definitely just do what we do.
Yeah,
You know what I
you're
mean?
lucky. They threw me off after the first time I put something up. But it's funny you said that with conspiracies, we're not here to wake people up and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
I'm with you, man. I would go home to my
I
parents'
would love to
house.
do it though. Don't get me wrong. I
Oh,
would.
it's fun.
I
It's
tried
fun.
to, but I've tried to so much where it's like, oh, I don't want to
But you
destroy
know where we
relationships.
can wake people up? And I
Hmm.
think that everybody kind of has a sense of this, even if they don't realize it, is that what we're experiencing right now is a spiritual war.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
And I think that's what all conspiracies, at least in my opinion, point to.
Oh yeah.
That
Dude.
there
Yeah.
is good forces and there are bad forces. And I truly believe that they are battling for our spirit, right? Because I love listening to people's near-death experiences. And if you're into that kind of stuff, check out the Imagine Heaven podcast.
Okay.
This guy, he was a former atheist, and then he ended up interviewing over 1,000 people from all over the world about their near-death experiences from all these different, belief systems. And it's really interesting the similarities of their experiences. But it points to the fact that no, this is a spiritual war.
Mm.
There are these, whether you want to call them archons or fallen Elohim or demonic people or demonic entities, these things are real. And they're trying to lead us away from the creator. They're trying to lead us away, what I would say, from acting like Christ, right? They want us to act like the devil. They want to lead us with hate. And they apply pressure from below, pressure from above. We don't know where it's coming, just to keep us off kilter. But that's what I think all conspiracies point to, is this spiritual battle. And I think that's something more people can understand.
Oh yeah. And yeah, dude, that's actually really. As soon as you get out, you get deeper into any conspiracy, name one. You'll at some point be faced with something supernatural or out of this world, whatever, however you want to look at it. And then you're like, well, what is that? And then once you get into that, it all becomes spiritual after that because you realize, like, oh, yeah, everybody's really into this weird shit. What is this weird shit? Now I got all these weird books in my house for all this weird shit. And I'm reading all these weird people's writings. And now it seems like I'm into it when I talk to other people about it. But really, I'm just trying to understand some shit. So then when you go talk to people about it, they're like, man, so wait, are you saying you worship Lucifer? It's like, no, I'm trying to explain that like
These people
this shit's
do.
everywhere. This shit's
It's real.
everywhere. Yeah. And yeah, it's funny how that works though. But yeah, dude,
Did we
it's a
ever
good
talk
journey.
about King Charles on the last episode?
I think we briefly mentioned him, especially with the painting. I know that we probably at least
Oh no,
mentioned a
you want to
short.
hear something crazy about
Go ahead.
King Charles's bloodline? So about 3 years ago, and you can actually go look this up, he went on a media tour and he claimed to take his genealogy or his bloodline back to Vlad the Impaler, right?
Yeah.
So he was that Merovingian king during the fall of the Ottoman Empire.
Mm.
And you can find this, it's hard to find, but within, these mythologies, right? The Merovingian people claim to take their genealogy back to Hercules. Well, who's Hercules? He's the giant sons of one of the Greek gods. And get this, he inspired the fictional character Dracula. Do you know what Dracula means in Greek?
What?
Son of a dragon.
Oh yeah, son of the dragon. And he's
Genealogy
got
of
the
the
red.
dragon gods. And you see this dragon god symbolism, whether it's a serpent or a dragon, all throughout the world, from China all the way down to South America, within all their monoliths. I'm telling
Yeah.
you, these gods, they take their genealogy, at least they believe they take their genealogy back to these fallen gods. And that's why they believe they have the divine right to rule over each one of us. And that actually goes back to, as crazy as it sounds, Deuteronomy 32, when God created the nations, he assigned a lowercase god or a fallen angel to rule over each one of them. And they mated with, women to create their royal bloodlines. And they got smaller and smaller and smaller throughout the generations to what we have now, which is, all these different bloodlines and all these different secret societies that all go back to these dragon gods.
Oh, that's 100%, dude. That's exactly how I look. So you said the Maruvian bloodline. I could have swore, dude, you fucked me up for a minute because earlier I said,
Merovingian.
how do you spell that? M-A-R?
Ah, shit. I don't know. Yeah, Merovingian
Merovingian.
bloodlines.
Maro, dude. Hold on a second. I swear to God. All right, I knew it. All right, so I knew I had this somewhere in here because some speculate that Trump is tied to royal Merovingian bloodlines.
There you go.
Dude, that's crazy.
There you go.
I'm telling you, man, they're all connected. It's all
Oh,
you
yeah.
yeah, dude, you just killed it, bro. That was fire. Yeah, that was definitely.
Well, you
Yeah,
know, it's really
we're trying to
interesting.
get into like how Trump like, with the right ear cut, the Mithraic, like high priest, like that's your like loyalty sign, and then all the different shit that's been going on. I think that when you look at this weird moon shit that they always do, right? Well, there's a okay, this month right now, I wanted to ask you about this, by the way. So you talked about the temple. The morning of the temple is this month during July for Israel, right? The
What is
morning,
that?
like,
Will you break that down for me more? The morning of the
so the
temple?
month of Tammuz is what they call it, right? And then July 11th is a Jewish holiday. And then that night, July 10th to the 11th, there's a full moon, buck moon, right? I think some shit's going to go down, dude, during that time, especially when we talked about the Biodefense Commission report that talked about, biowarfare and false flag, possibly whatever it is. I think that shit's going to I just anticipate some weird shit going on in the next week or so. I really do. And then I'll never try to look at that way again if I'm wrong, but I really think like, dude, if they always work that way. So I'd like
Let
to
me tell you,
see.
yeah, look at all that stuff means a lot to them. This is the knowledge that was imparted to them from their gods, right? They taught them about astrology. They taught them about, cutting roots and all that type of stuff. And they definitely go along the lunar calendar. They do certain events during the blood moons and all that type of stuff. The rituals on certain days, the solstices, all that type of stuff means stuff to them. And I'm with you. I mean, if this is the month of Tammuz or let's just say the morning of the temple,
Mm-hmm.
oh, get ready.
Oh yeah. Oh, 100%. And then also, the B-2 bombers that went over there and bombed Iran, it was done on a waning or waxing moon, which was the moon of Hecate, which is like a demoness, right? Like a demoness goddess who would be the equivalent of probably, I don't know, Venus, maybe. I can't remember exactly, like maybe Ice or Lilith, that kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, that's some weird shit because they already did in the past few months do that, right? So yeah.
It's crazy. I don't know if you saw this. I forget what the name of the organization was, but right after there was a little ceasefire, there's stuff going around that there's this billboard with Trump in the front, with Bibi behind him, all the different Middle Eastern world leaders, and it's talking about. Did you see that?
Like the Last Supper,
Something like that, but they're
it
behind
looked
them.
like it.
But it
Yeah.
was a real ad for one of these think tanks or whatever. And just a side note, I always thought this is funny because I think names kind of matter to a certain extent. I think that things are passed on through generations. I think names are powerful, just like symbols are powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And within this group, this is like a who's who of just evil dudes in Israel, right? Like Mossad, all this type of stuff. And they
Mm-hmm.
had this one general, and his parents named him
What?
fucking Nimrod. His name was General Nimrod. Now I'm half Jewish. My parents named me Benjamin. I don't understand what type of parent would name their kid Nimrod, especially if you have an understanding of the Bible. You almost wonder
Mm-hmm.
if this guy was one of these dark art moonchilds that was created with that name.
Oh yeah, definitely. And by the
Nimrod,
way,
General Nimrod. I mean, you can't make that up.
no, you can't. That's crazy, dude. Yeah, Tammuz and Nimrod are the same. I mean, we're talking about the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So just to elaborate, so there's, I guess, the saddest day, the ninth, or no, not the ninth, but usually falls in late July or early August. But then there's also the 3 weeks and 9 days, which is the beginning of July, when the walls of Jerusalem were breached by the Romans. And then that ends on Tisha B'Av, which is this other thing during that month. So that's why it's a whole month, because there's two
Mm.
things. And it's the saddest day on the Jewish calendar according to the tradition. But yeah, so it was just the destroying from the Romans of the temple. And
Mm.
so yeah, I don't know. We're gonna see.
Well,
Maybe
what I
not.
find
But
really interesting is, there's Nick Fuentes is a big time, Vatican shill, if you ask me. And he is talking about and making, it's rounds all over social media, this idea of a new Roman Empire, right? That's going to be birthed. Elon Musk pointing to that as well. And what's interesting, and there's a lot of arguments to be made about Old Testament prophecy, especially the prophecy of Daniel, because it is so spot on with a lot of his prophecies. And there's one from Daniel 2, and there's this giant statue, and I think the statue is of Nebuchadnezzar, the king at the time. And in his vision, there's this giant statue made out of 4 different
the metal statue. I'm sorry,
statue,
go ahead.
right?
Yeah.
So you have like the Babylonian Empire, which is the gold. You
Gold.
have the Greek Empire or the Persian Empire after that, which is whatever the mid chest was.
Silver.
And the Greek one, but then the final one was the legs were iron. Okay. Historians will tell you that is the Roman Empire. Now, this is the interesting part. When it gets to the toes, the iron mixed with clay. Now, if you read what the description of that is, it says that these royal families will mix, but they will end up breaking, right? So if you look at the creation of the Holy Roman Empire after Rome fell, what was it over Europe? It was just a bunch of these families, intermarrying with each other. Yep. Exactly what it said was going to happen. And I think that we're going to see a rise of this Roman Empire.
I agree, dude. I mean, the first sitting president to go to a Super Bowl, I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Trump, and it was at the Caesar's Palace, Caesar, Rome. And then you also have, he called it the Golden Age, the Pax Romana, which is a Roman. And then you have Elon doing the Roman salute, and everybody's like, oh, Nazi. And it's like,
no, it's
it's Roman, and so I mean, and that's why the Catholics backed up Hitler whenever he did what he did. I mean, it's all connected, and then the Rothschild, but dude, I think that you're 100% right about that.
Really
and real quick, what I do worry about, he's talking about going again in 2028 and Trump on, right? And there's a picture, I don't know if you saw it, but it was literally like the eagle from Rome, and it had his face like sideways, and it was in Roman style font, and just the way it looked, and I was like, wow, they're really coming in hard with this Roman rebirth. Sorry, go ahead.
Because the Roman mythology is the same as the Atlantean mythology. It's the same as the Greek mythology. And that if you look this up, this is real. And remember, I think these bloodlines are trying to take us back to the days of Noah, back to Atlantis. And you know what they would call Atlantis? The golden era.
Yeah, they would call it that. The
occult calls Atlantis the golden age.
Yep. Oh yeah, because that was when they ruled.
Yeah.
The king gods.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. No, it's definitely good conversation, man. I love it. It's definitely coming. Go ahead and shout out where people can find you again, man. They definitely got to follow your stuff. It's awesome.
So you can find me at End of the World News on Instagram, also on BitChute, and I think across all audio platforms. And I guess I will leave your audience with this. We have a creator. Let's live in his spirit, and everybody repent.
Hell yeah. Repent before you get got, son. No, we'll see, man. It's crazy out here, man. Hopefully, hopefully we get through the month of Tammuz unscathed. That's all I gotta say.
One real quick. I don't know if you guys are in a hurry, but what I find interesting is what's going to happen with this Iran-Israel conflict, because it looks like they stopped it to a certain extent. But then, reports.
Well, he called a 60-day ceasefire for this Gaza, but then that's the same day he approved more ammunition for Israel. What do they need? 3,000? Sorry, but sorry, that's probably exactly where.
I wonder if they were trying to manufacture our consent, or this was like a test run to see where people are at. Because if you look at the reports, like they only set their nuclear program back 6 months, right? So if we had to go in there now to prevent a nuclear program, if they can get back into that within 6 months, then I guess we're setting up for war in 6 months. And I think to your point, this next month or the month after this might be crucial as far as them laying the groundwork to manufacturing our consent. And we might see some, false flag attacks at home. Might see them close down the, Strait of Hormuz or whatever, where all the oil comes through.
Oh yeah.
I think that was maybe a test run to see where, the public was at, where they're supporting, what they weren't supporting. And I think they're going to make the necessary tweaks because I don't think this is an end to it, right? If you know what they want to do, if you study the occult or you study these secret societies, if you know what they want to do, then you know that's the end game. And I don't think they're going to stop.
I'm 100% with you. That's kind of what we're anticipating. That's the only reason why I ever even would put some kind of weird prediction out there like that. But I'm like, dude, it just seems like they're just trying to build up more. Instantly came out with the news articles about we barely even postponed it. And we'll see how it goes though. Yeah, it's definitely good luck with everything.
Cool.
Stay safe, dog. But it was good seeing you, talking to you. We'll be in touch, and we'll have you on anytime you want.
Hey, you're gonna upload this to YouTube?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, hell yeah. Let me know when you do that, and then I'll take a clip out and I'll throw it on up there and I'll start promoting it for you.
Hey, right on. I appreciate you.
Of course,
thank you very much. Yeah, it's been another episode. Y'all enjoy. I hope you enjoyed everything. And we'll see you next time.